Last night, the universe recognized you from a dream they had years ago. YouTube narration script, estimated runtime, 60 minutes. Years ago, someone had a dream they never forgot. Not a dream that faded by breakfast, the way most dreams do. A dream that stayed. One with a face, or a feeling, or a moment so specific it left a mark on them, a mark they've carried quietly ever since, without ever fully understanding why. This is not an accident. And if this video reached you tonight, of all nights, I don't believe that's an accident either. Something in you has been sensing that a piece of your life is about to make sense in a way it never has before. Stay with me. Because tonight, I want to talk about something strange, something almost impossible to explain with logic alone, the idea that the universe may have recognized you long before you ever crossed paths with the people or moments meant to change your life. Somewhere, years ago, someone had a dream. And what if that dream was about you, not literally, not in a way either of you could have understood at the time, but in the deeper sense? A glimpse. A preview. A quiet signal sent long before either of you were ready to receive it. Keep listening. Because what comes next might explain a feeling you've carried for a very long time without ever having the words for it. Let's talk about why this message found you tonight, specifically tonight, and not some other night. You may not realize it, but you've been standing at a kind of threshold lately. Not a dramatic one. A quiet one. The kind you only notice in hindsight, once you're standing on the other side of it, looking back and thinking, that's when everything started to shift. What if the timing of this exact moment, you, here, listening to these words, isn't random at all? What if it's the final piece lining up after years of smaller pieces quietly falling into place, one after another, so gradually you barely noticed? Think of a puzzle spread across a table, built slowly over years by hands you never saw. Piece after piece, set down without explanation. And now, tonight, one final piece is being placed, and suddenly, the picture starts to look like something whole. Someone, somewhere, has carried an image of you, or a feeling that turned out to be you, for longer than you've known they existed. Not consciously. Not as an obsession. As a quiet imprint that occasionally surfaced in dreams, in déjà vu, in a strange certainty they couldn't explain to anyone who asked. And they still don't fully understand it. That's the part worth sitting with. Let's talk about this dream, or this recognition, however it shows up for you. Some people call it déjà vu. Some call it a premonition. Some don't have a name for it at all, just a memory of a dream that felt more real than dreams usually feel, one that included a face, a place, or a feeling they couldn't shake, even years later. What if that dream wasn't random? What if it was an early glimpse of a connection that hadn't happened yet, planted in someone's mind long before the timeline caught up to it? This isn't about literal fortune-telling, and I won't pretend certainty where there isn't any. But so many people describe this same experience, a dream, a feeling, a face that stayed with them for years before they ever met the person it seemed to be pointing toward. You may already sense who or what this connects to in your own life. A recurring dream you've had. A place that felt oddly familiar the first time you saw it. A person whose face felt like something you'd seen before, somewhere you couldn't place. Notice that feeling if it's rising in you right now. That's not your imagination working overtime. That's recognition, arriving quietly, the way it usually does. Here's what's been happening quietly behind the scenes, whether you've noticed it or not. There are signs that arrive long before we understand their meaning. A recurring number. A stranger who feels instantly familiar. A place you've never been that somehow feels like memory instead of discovery. A song that seems to follow you through different seasons of your life. These signs don't prove anything specific. No one can promise you an exact outcome, and I want to be honest about that from the start. But they often point to something real shifting quietly beneath the surface of ordinary life, an alignment happening in ways too subtle to observe directly. Your angels, or whatever unseen guidance resonates with you, have been working patiently in the background. In the friend who mentioned something at exactly the right moment. In the door that closed so another one could open later, when you were finally ready to walk through it. In the years that felt aimless but were quietly shaping you into who you needed to become. The waiting, the confusion, the seasons where nothing seemed to move, none of that was rejection. None of that was the universe forgetting about you. It was preparation, unfolding on a timeline you couldn't see the shape of yet. Now let's talk about why this recognition took so many years to reach this point. Divine timing isn't about speed. It's about readiness, the kind that can't be rushed, no matter how much we wish it could be. A seed planted too early, in soil that isn't ready, doesn't grow faster. It simply fails. Timing exists to protect what's being built, not to delay it out of cruelty. Imagine someone having that dream years ago, long before you'd even become the person you are now. If the recognition had happened back then, would you have been ready? Would the people or circumstances in your life at that time have made space for it? What if the years in between, the years that felt uneventful, or difficult, or strangely directionless, were the exact years needed to shape both of you into people capable of recognizing each other fully, instead of only partially, the way you might have back then? The waiting had a purpose. Every year that passed was quietly doing something, even when it felt like nothing was happening at all. So why does this recognition seem to be surfacing now, after all this time? Because you've become someone new. Not overnight, gradually, through years of small, mostly invisible growth. You've healed things you didn't know needed healing. You've let go of expectations that weren't serving you. You've grown into a version of yourself with more depth, more patience, and more capacity to receive something meaningful without being overwhelmed by it. That growth doesn't announce itself loudly. It shows up as quiet shifts, the argument you didn't need to win anymore, the person you stopped chasing, the peace you found in solitude instead of constantly searching for company to avoid it. What if the timing of this recognition lines up exactly with the moment you finally became capable of holding what it means, instead of letting it slip past you the way it might have years ago? Every quiet, unnoticed step you've taken has led here, to this exact point, where recognition finally makes sense instead of confusion. Something is shifting right now, even if it isn't visible in your everyday life yet. Have you felt an unusual sense of familiarity lately, with a place, a stranger, a piece of music, or even a feeling that arrives without explanation? Have old dreams resurfaced in your memory recently, seemingly out of nowhere? I want to be careful here, because I can't promise you these signs mean anything specific. No one honestly can. But so often, these small moments reflect something real happening internally, a kind of quiet convergence, as if separate timelines are finally beginning to move toward the same point. What if part of you already senses this, even before your conscious mind has caught up? Pay gentle attention over the coming days. Not anxiously, not obsessively, just with quiet openness. Notice what feels unexpectedly familiar. Notice what keeps resurfacing in your thoughts without clear reason. You don't need to chase it. You only need to remain aware enough to recognize it when it arrives. I want to speak honestly to the part of you that's hesitant to believe any of this. Maybe you've heard ideas like this before and been let down. Maybe a part of you wants to dismiss all of it as wishful thinking, because believing and then being disappointed feels worse than never believing at all. That instinct isn't wrong. It's simply self-protective, built from real experiences. But I'd like to offer you something more grounded than blind belief or defensive doubt, a quiet, steady trust that doesn't collapse the moment certainty isn't handed to you. You're allowed to hold space for possibility without needing proof up front. This isn't about naive certainty. It's about choosing peace over the exhausting habit of assuming disappointment before anything has even had the chance to unfold. Your story is shifting, not because I can promise a specific reunion, a specific date, or a specific outcome. I can't, and I won't pretend otherwise. But your relationship with patience, wonder, and trust in something larger than your fear is changing. And that shift matters more than any single event. Let's imagine, gently, what it might feel like if this recognition eventually becomes something real and visible. Picture an ordinary moment, nothing staged, nothing forced. And somehow, in a way neither of you could have scripted, a familiarity settles in almost instantly. A conversation that feels like a continuation rather than an introduction. A face that feels remembered rather than new. A sense of having arrived somewhere you've technically never been before, yet somehow already know. Maybe the deeper breakthrough isn't only about another person. Maybe it's about finally recognizing yourself, understanding your own story clearly enough to see how every piece, every delay, every unexplained feeling was quietly building toward this exact moment of clarity. Hold this image loosely, without gripping it too tightly. Whatever is meant to unfold will unfold in its own time, in its own way, exactly as it's supposed to. If any part of this reached something in you tonight, write, "I trust divine timing," in the comments below. Not because typing those words guarantees anything by itself, but because naming what you believe, openly, has a quiet way of making it feel more real and steady inside you. You're not the only one hearing these words tonight, even though it feels like I'm speaking only to you. Somewhere else, right now, someone else is sitting in their own quiet room, carrying their own version of this same recognition, their own years of waiting, their own quiet hope they've been almost afraid to name out loud. Before you go, I want to leave you with this. Whatever has felt familiar without explanation, whatever dream or feeling has quietly followed you for years, you are not imagining it, and you have not been forgotten in the waiting. Not in the years that felt uneventful, not in the moments no one else noticed how much you were carrying. You are allowed to rest tonight instead of bracing for disappointment. Whatever recognition is meant to reach full clarity will continue unfolding in its own time, exactly as it should. Thank you for staying until the end of this. Thank you for letting your heart remain open enough to consider all of this, even after everything that may have tried to close it over the years. That openness isn't naivety, it's the very thing that will let you recognize the full picture when it finally comes into view. You are not alone. You have never been alone. And whatever tonight was meant to awaken in you, I hope it settles into something steady and calm, a quiet trust that stays with you long after this video ends.